Hi, I'm Mr. West, Rossit's most stylish, and today I'm reading you an extract from the book Birdsong, which describes in Sebastian Faulks' eyes how he thinks the first day of the song might have felt for the soldiers. 8 hours before the revised time of the attack, the guns went quiet, preserving shells for the morning. It was night time, but no man slept. Towards 4, the lowest time of the night, there was a mortal quiet all along the line. No one spoke. There was for once no sound of birds. There was at last a little light over the raised ground and the mist down by the river. It began to rain. Grey, urgent, sour breath, and at the head of the communication trench. The attack will be at 7:30. The platoon commanders were stricken, disbelieving. In daylight? In daylight? The men's faces cowed and haunted when they were told. Breakfast came with tea and petrol cans. Hunt's earnest features bent over bacon on a tiny stove. Then came the rum, and talk began again. Men drank greedily. Some of the younger boys staggered and laughed. The noise overhead began to intensify. 7:15. They were almost there. Stephen on his knees, some men taking photographs from their pockets, kissing the faces of their wives and children. Hunt telling foul jokes. Petrosian clasping a silver cross. The bombardment reached its peak. The air overhead was packed and solid, with noise that did not move. It was as though waves were piling up in the air, but would not break. It was like no sound on earth. The mine went up on the ridge, a great leaping core of compacted soil. Flames rose to more than 100 feet. It was too big, Stephen thought. The scale appalled him. Shockwaves from the explosion ran through the trench. Brennan was pitched forward off the fire step and broke his leg. We must go now, thought Stephen. No word came. Byrne looked questioningly at him. Stephen shook his head. Still 10 minutes. German fire began at once. The lip of the British trench leapt and spat soil where machine guns raked it. Stephen ducked, men shouting. Not yet, Stephen screamed. Not yet! The air above the trench now solid. The second hand of his watch in slow motion. 29 passed. The whistle in his mouth, his foot on the ladder. He swallowed hard and blew. He clambered out and looked around him. It was, for a moment, completely quiet. Then, the German machine guns resumed. To his left, Stephen saw men trying to emerge from the trench, but being smashed by bullets before they could stand. The gaps in the wire became jammed with bodies. Behind him, the men were coming up. He saw Gray run along the top of the trench, shouting encouragement. He walked hesitatingly forward, his skin tense for the feeling of metal tearing flesh. Byrne was walking beside him at a slow pace, required by their orders. Stephen glanced to his right. He could see a long, wavering line of khaki. Primitive dolls progressing in tense, deliberate steps, going down with a silent flap of arms, replaced, falling, continue as though walking into a gale. He saw Hunt fall to his right, stood bent to help him, and Stephen saw his head open up, bright red under machine gun bullets, as his helmet fell away. Stephen went down. Some force had blown him. He was in a dip in the ground with a bleeding man shivering. The man with him was screaming inaudibly. Stephen wrapped his dressing round the man's leg, then looked at himself. There was no wound. He crawled to the rim of the shell hole. There were others ahead of him. He stood up and began to walk again. Perhaps with them he would be safer. He felt nothing as he crossed the pitted land on which humps of khaki lay every few yards. The load on his back was heavy. He looked behind and saw second line walking into the barrage in no man's land. They were hurled up like waves breaking backwards into the sea. Bodies were starting to pile up and clog the progress. There was a man beside him, missing part of his face, but walking in the same dreamlike state. His rifle pressing forward. His nose dangled, and Stephen could see his teeth through the missing cheek. The noise was unlike anything he had heard before. It lay against his skin, shaking his bones. Remembering his order not to stop for those behind him, he pressed slowly on, and as the smoke lifted in front of him, he saw the German wire. It had not been cut. Men were running up and down it in turmoil, looking for a way through. They were caught in the coils where they brought down torrents of machine gun fire. Their bodies jerked up and down, twisting and jumping. Still they tried. 2 men were clipping vainly with their cutters amongst the corpses, their movement bringing the sharp, disdainful fire of a sniper. They lay still. He looked back towards the British line. each foot of which was pathetically exposed to fire from its superior position. Through the smoke of the German barrage, you could see the scruffy line still straggling on, driven by some slow clockwork purpose into the murder of the guns. Stephen presumed that most of the men who had begun the attack with him were dead. The second wave had not reached this far, and perhaps never would. He reasoned that he should try and retire and join the attack later, but his orders were to press on past Boom and Hamel, as far as Bucourt on the river. The soldier's motto, Price had told his men, when in doubt, go forward.